I was trying to think like that so that I would have the best behavior. So this story is about how Prabhupada was so practical and how he knew how to react, like I was telling you this morning, in front of different circumstances. So that was a pretty proud one. So we wanted Prabhupada to be able to give a lecture in one of the most famous places in Paris. And one of the most famous places in Paris was called the Salle Pleyel. It was not an enormous place like here. It was only 2,000 people could sit there and listen. But for us, being in France for such a short time, to have a place where Prabhupada would talk, where there could be 2,000 people, that was very, very extraordinary. So we got that place. Plus, that place was also so famous because it was a conference hall, but also a concert hall where, maybe not all of you know them, but the American and the European people, they know them. The very famous singer, Ray Charles, sang there, and the Rolling Stones sang there. So that was very, very famous. So now we had this famous place, but now we needed to fill it up. So in order to fill up that place, I had arranged that we would have enormous posters of Prabhupada being posted all over Paris. So even after Prabhupada's conference, you walk around Paris and you see Prabhupada's face still in the posters. It was wonderful. So finally, the day comes. So I was anxious. How many people are going to be there? And there was 1,800 people. The place was almost filled. So that was a success. So Prabhupada is installed there, he's sitting there with all the devotees, where he did a wonderful kirtan, and then he starts the lecture. So I was translating, so Prabhupada is lecturing, it goes very nicely. And then, suddenly, he says something which is for the French people is not good at all. He talked about the authority of the king. But for those of you who know about European history, the French people, they had a revolution to get the kings out. So when they heard about the authority of a king, they got disturbed, and especially that it was towards the end of the lecture. There was a certain amount of people who were sitting in the back of the lecturing hall, and they're starting to make all kind of noises, bad noises. And in fact, I found out the reason why is because at that time, of course, only our generation knows about that, but at that time, in France, a lot of young people were communists. And communists are, of course, full atheists. They don't believe in any God. So when they heard and talking about God, Krishna, God's authority, they started to make so much noise that, and one of them challenged Prabhupada, and he said something like, I don't remember exact word, but he said, "Why are you sitting on the throne?" Because we had brought Prabhupada's Yasasan, you know. But he said it in such a way that when I translated to Prabhupada what he said, Prabhupada, I didn't say exactly what Prabhupada said, you know, I made it a little less bad. And Prabhupada said, no, tell me exactly what he said. Ooh, so I had to say exactly what Prabhupada said. I was so embarrassed to tell him. But Prabhupada is so good at knowing when he's challenged, you know. He just knows how to defeat the person in a few words, you know. So that's one example that I always followed. And he said, but you can sit on this throne. Just come and talk about spiritual life, and you come and sit here. And he invited him to come and sit. So the person just didn't know what to say anymore. The noise stopped, you know. And then Prabhupada said, okay, now the lecture is finished. Let's have kirtan. So we had kirtan, we distributed prasadam. But then, and that's why I was telling you this morning, how Prabhupada, he was so practical. He knew how to adapt to any situation. So he said, okay, we were in the car going back to the temple together. And Prabhupada said, okay, now when I come to France, you don't give me the Vyasasan anymore. You just give me a regular armchair. So it's so wonderful. It was such an example. I was telling you how we had so much to learn how to, in our preaching, how to react to different situations, And I followed like that Prabhupada's example. So that then later, I was giving a lot of lectures in universities, in Paris. And sometimes I was pretty much challenged by the students. But because I had seen how Prabhupada did, I just would defeat that challenge in just a few words in the same way. But I learned that from Prabhupada. So the second story is also how to adapt the different situation in the way Prabhupada did it. So that was in a Gurukul. I was the head of a Gurukul in New Mayapur at that time. And that was that Gurukul. So, and I noticed that when I took on the direction of the Gurukul, there was someone before me did it for 6 months, and then I came and I did it for many years. So I noticed this is strange that the children were in the temple room with the devotees, children, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, really, really young children. They were in the temple room during japa time and trying to chant japa on beads along with the other devotees, and it was really not working, 5 years old children. So I decided, no, that's not good, because Prabhupada had already, in other Gurukuls, he had told the devotees, because, some things were not doing very well, and he had chastised them, he had said, no, you must always use your common sense. So I thought, okay, I use my common sense. How am I going to do with these children? So I decided, okay, now the children, instead of having the 108 beads, like we have, it will be only 1/4, so that's easier for them. And they get very enthused when they say, I have finished a round. So I did that, and they like to chant japa, but in a kind of special rhythm that they invented, So, okay, we were chanting in that special rhythm, the way they did it. So I was taking all my Gurukul kids during the japa time, and on one side of the temple, we were chanting like that, in their rhythm and with their small beads, small 1/4 of a bead, the regular japa beads. And then all the devotees were telling me, but what is this? You are changing things. Why are you changing things? They were really kind of angry at me that I was doing it in that way. This is not normal, but I kept on doing it because Prabhupada said, use your common sense, So then Prabhupada came to New Mayapur. And when he came, he wanted to see all the Gurukul children and all the teachers. So we all pack up in his room, and Prabhupada talks to them. And at one moment he said, now chant Hare Krishna. And so they started to chant Hare Krishna in that way, in that kind of singing rhythm. All of them are singing at the same time the same words. And Prabhupada loved it. And he said, yeah, keep on chanting, chant. And so much so that then he raised up and he told all the kids to stand up, and everybody kept on chanting and chanting. So again, he gave the example, he said, use your common sense. I followed what Prabhupada said, use your common sense, and it worked perfectly, and Prabhupada was very happy. So whose turn?